Hello and welcome to another edition of Inside the Process, where we get to kind of draw back the curtain, or I get to, or my multiple personalities get to, draw back the curtain on the process of making music, the experiences, and sometimes the wonky details, which I try to spare you, or at least keep interesting for both musicians and non-musicians. So, relevant to talk about today, which is why I'm doing it, and it occurred to me that any of the other topics I'm thinking of, they can wait. And I do keep, notes going forward on, and looking backward, and kind of all over the place, as you can see, of topic ideas and possibilities for future Inside the Process editions. And that's why I think I can keep going kind of forever, because there's really so many things to talk about. But right now, I can tell you that last weekend I spent the day in Rehoboth, and I did it atypically, not like I would ordinarily be in Rehoboth. I was a civilian, and I kind of poked around during the day at things related to the Jazz Festival weekend. And it was actually really cool. I planned it to see some of my friends and colleagues who were playing at various venues. Circumstances did not permit me to consider doing the headline shows, the big ticketed events at night, but there are musicians everywhere in Rehoboth in the Jazz Festival weekend. I got to drop in on Sharon Sable, my friend who I'm doing the Blossom Theory tribute project with. Poked around the corner and caught some of Cody Level, and I don't think he even knew I did. Will Warwick, who is a wonderful student at Towson University, who Eddie Sherman and Peggy Raley brought to Mainstay Monday as a True Blue Festival, stresses and puts the importance on education and providing performance opportunities to young musicians and clinics and schools and stuff, and he's a product of that. And then the last guy dropped in on the Bill Dilks B3 organ trio, and it's fun to hear just like a nice blasted B3. And Vince Lardier is the featured sax player, and those of you who know what I'm about or followed me for a while will know that name pops up. Wonderful bebop alto saxophonist from Wilmington. And I'm just going to play a tune that he played. It was just very striking and compelling and nice. little Body and Soul. That was fun to play. I have my notes here. Right. So I mentioned that I didn't see any headliners, and there were some really good headliners. I wasn't going to actually go here because it's kind of ancillary to the topic, but I'll bring it up. And many of you know, there are two competing jazz festivals in Rehoboth that happen at the same time. The original Rehoboth Beach Jazz Festival, which is like 30 years in or something crazy. And then, about 10 years ago, the True Blue Jazz Festival started in reaction to the fact that the Rehoboth Festival, well, you can't even say they broadened their scope. They actually just kind of left jazz behind in terms of the traditions and the history, and they do a lot of smooth jazz and other things. And oh boy, since I'm talking about festivals, there's lots of directions I can go that I didn't even think of in my notes. So this is just going to be a random splattering, I suppose. Festivals, particularly jazz festivals, they exist because of the particular music and the love of the music, but they also realize they need to exist, and therefore they evolve over time. At least the ones that survive. And evolution is completely necessary. I've evolved over time. If I'm my own festival, it's not really, but the idea of being relevant and having people to connect to and finding and nurturing your audience and stuff, there's a common denominator between an organization or a festival and a musician like me. So that I completely get, and I've had to kind of evolve and adjust my approach over the years. I recorded piano for my friends here last night, and that's going to be broadcast on my other main YouTube channel, Joe Holt's Notes, tomorrow. And I had a guest here in her early 90s, and I was remarking to someone relevant to the conversation. I pulled my Showboat schedule from 1993 when I used to work the lobby there. There were like tons of other musicians who worked there, and I had found that paper, and there's my name highlighted for my shifts as it was given to me. I have it up on my refrigerator. It's just kind of fun. And talking about it, and I said, okay, well, the Showboat was primarily senior citizens, right? It will come down there, and the person who was my guest, who was 90 years old, or in her 90s, was roughly 60 years old, my age, right? When I played the Showboat. And the music that I enjoy playing was just like pretty much bullseye, right, to a senior citizen back then. And not so much now, because I can't have an audience comprised entirely of 90-something-year-old people. It's more complicated than that, and there's more dynamics in that. But the meat and potatoes of it do kind of center where I'm talking about. And so musicians and festivals and everything have to adapt, right? And having said that, I'm just going to write my own script here, and I'm going to just play a tune. And I'm just going to play an old tune, yeah. So I was doing a private little entertainment show for mountain bike tours. I haven't talked much about that, but when you see the picture on my website on the October schedule about the private things I get to do on Thursday nights, and there's a picture there. That's what that picture is about and where that picture is from. And I talked about my sing-along days at the Showboat, and I realized when I played tunes that used to be sing-along tunes back then for senior citizens, there was one group who nobody knew the tunes. It's like, oh my goodness, I have to adjust this. So let me just play a good old tune. It was my universe, even in the 90s, even though we're going back to like the 30s, and it isn't now. Because I'm trying to think of just the right tune. And I shouldn't concern myself with it. I should just play any old tune. There we go. So I'm way off my script here, but that's fine. And that particular tune, I'm going to sit right down and write myself a letter. When I played it for one of the tour groups, people were my age and older, primarily, or a little older. No one knew the tune. What? I thought that was actually like a tune that was covered in the 50s by somebody else. But anyway, little reality check. But I mentioned that the headliners and the two festivals, and the original Rehoboth Beach Jazz Festival, put it this way, the first headliner Thursday night was Blood, Sweat, and Tears. Now, Blood, Sweat, and Tears brings a crowd, for sure. Blood, Sweat, and Tears would not be in anybody's discography of jazz records. But the festival did do something unusual this year, that festival. And I was aware of the inner workings of this, so I knew that there had to be a little bit of cajoling to make it happen, because I know somebody in the process. But they brought in Joey Alexander. Joey Alexander, I think, is either 16 or 17 now. Young. You can't call him a prodigy. You just call him a major label, serious, top tier jazz pianist right now. Just an amazing kid. And I had considered going to that show. He was someone who like Chick Corea mentored, and now that was a jazz show for sure. But circumstances didn't permit me to do it. So anyway, that's the two festivals in Rehoboth thing that happened at the same time. And I'll come back to that a little bit. But talking about the headliners, I mentioned one headliner because there might be, actually in Rehoboth there are two headliners a night because the competing festivals both have headliners. You know, this is kind of funny. But anyway, when people like wonder, why are you having two headline shows in the same night? Well, because they're two different organizations. What was it one year? It was Al Jarreau, and it was, I forget who the other one was. I mean, really, I have to choose? So, the point I'm going to make, though, is I mentioned a list of musicians that I saw during the day. And others I could have seen at night that weren't like headline big ticket show acts, and there were just a few of the musicians that were around town. The whole town kind of gets involved, and it's really cool. But the point is that there's one or two headliners, dozens, if not hundreds, of other musicians there as well. And I mean good musicians, great musicians, who are what I call in the trenches. You know, for every name that you can think of, like famous name in music, there are thousands of other musicians doing their thing. A lot of them working in support roles, you know, studio musicians and people like that. Like I'm following the Tony Bennett, Lady Gaga, you know, story, which has kind of been written now with the last release. And I watch those Tony Bennett videos, you know, of the duets albums, and I'm in all those studio musicians. They have skill sets that I absolutely don't have. And none of them are going to be household names. It's not why they do it. You know, they're just great. They're great musicians out there. So for every name you know, there's thousands of others that you're going to experience, and you have. If you go to an orchestra concert, you just go to a random place and there's this really good like trio or musician or whatever, and they're part of your life for 10 minutes and then they're not. You know, that's what we do, right? Story I've told before, my friend Bruce Kaminsky, a bass player. I miss Bruce. I say my friend. I haven't seen him in quite a long time, but I used to play a lot with him. And quite the philosopher, that boy. And he said one of the most important lessons he learned as a young musician was when he was, and this was back when Sammy Kaye, I keep getting confused if it's Sammy Kaye or Kay Kaiser. I think it was Sammy Kaye. He was still out there with his big band, and Bruce was playing bass. He said he was on a break, sitting minding his own business, and a trombone player walks by. The significance of it being a trombone player, I don't know, except that it dates the story, because how many trombone players randomly walk by these days? And says to Bruce, just in passing as he walks by, "Remember, kid, there is no big time." He kept going. He said that was like one of the best lessons to get his head in the right place. And it's not why we do it. You know, and you've heard me talk about that before. If you haven't, I'm capable of it, calling it the American Idol culture, which I'm dating myself because that show I don't think exists anymore. And what I call that is musicians in the trenches. You know, should I just for a second? To avoid playing any other wrong notes, I won't play anymore. In the trenches, and festivals, music festivals, not just jazz festivals, all genres. Although my experience and what I'm really going to talk about, jazz festivals, are some of those trenches where you will have some marquee players, but you'll have tons and tons of really, really good musicians who are doing their thing, and you really should experience, and you may never know their names apart from that festival. In the trenches. And yeah, what was I just going to say? Oh, speaking of all genres of festivals, Chestertown, which is the big city of 5,000 people, that's the cultural hub of our area. It's a crazy area we live in, where there's so much culture in a rural place, and arts and stuff. National Music Festival, which has been here about 10 years, is a big classical music festival that takes over the town for 2 weeks. Open dress rehearsals during the day, and rehearsals that people can go to, and then full concerts nights, symphony orchestra kind of stuff, and chamber music, and every night, and multiple concerts a night. Many of them sold out, and festivals are a thing. And with the National Music Festival, they have mentors, they have professional players, and then they have apprentices, which are top-level student musicians, often college graduates, sometimes still in college. And I was listening to a classical music station a while back, and one of the performances, one of the pieces I heard was recorded at the National Music Festival in Chestertown. You know, it's cool stuff. So if I heard it once, I'm sure there's other things. And we have a really, really good conductor who runs the thing. So festivals and trenches, guys. There's a connection there. Now, of course, it's not just festivals that keep musicians working. There's all sorts of things, but that's in the mix, especially for some. But now the question, why was I a civilian this last weekend at the festival, the True Blue Festival, competing with the Rehoboth, which is where I saw the other acts from. I played that festival every year, but not this year. And hence the title, or the topic of this, Precarious Festivities. Because as you know, maybe, I was going to be back with the Mediri brothers for the first time in like 13 years, back on their two festivals out west that run back-to-back weekends in Sun Valley, Idaho, and in Pismo Beach, California. And in Pismo, I took my oldest, who's now 32, 3? No, will be 33, right? But I took him on his 18th birthday, over his 18th birthday, to Pismo. So that's been a while. And with only about 6 weeks out, both those festivals had to cancel because of the COVID restrictions out there, which are more strict than they are here. And it's funny, out here it's like things are coming back to normal, with guardrails and kind of things, but things are happening. Now, part of the problem with those festivals is they're large gatherings. They're like the largest category of things that get the most restricted. And when the goalposts move, because the festivals rely on all volunteer staff, there's only so much they can, expect and demand from them as far as all the crazy hoops you have to jump through. And they just threw in a towel. And I imagine it had to be really, really difficult for them. And, and I was connected with some of the communication, because there has to be between musicians and the band leaders and stuff. I figured when both the festivals had committed to buying our plane tickets, so the money was out there and done, that we were safe, and we still weren't. And as disruptive as it was for me, it was really disruptive for them. So I feel for them. And the National Music Festival actually had to be dark this summer out here. They had some different considerations out here, but the jazz festivals out here are happening. Chestertown happened, Rehoboth happened. It was great, but out in California, if you can't pull it off, it don't mean nothing, right? Don't mean to think if it ain't got that swing, or if it just ain't gonna happen. Ugh. Yeah. So these be really complicated times for musicians, and complicated times for everybody, of course. And musicians are finding opportunities, and some opportunities are pretty much like normal. I have a friend, a good musician friend, Scott Silbert, who just released his first big band CD, wonderful project, and had their concert, their first event. It's kind of, I've never been there. Well, actually, no, I was there once for something unrelated. But it's over on the other side of DC, and they have this big swing dance community. And they had this big swing dance thing to inaugurate this CD. This place full of people out there swing dancing. Yeah, cool. It's kind of normal, but it isn't. But it isn't normal. And for Chestertown, for our festival a few weeks ago, it was great. And everything felt wonderful for True Blue. I imagine the headline showed. People wore masks probably, but it was good. Complicated times. Let's see if I remember this tune. I mean, because you want to have more than nothing, right? Okay. Hope I don't screw this up. I forgot how it goes. Yeah. Closer. Try it again, see if I'm any better. Let's call the whole thing off. I cancel that tune. No, I should have thought to refresh myself on that bridge this morning before I recorded. The other day I played it and I figured it out and then I forgot. Oh, well. Let's actually keep going. Let's not call anything off. But speaking of cancellations, like a week and a half ago now, there was this big to-do with Southwest Airline pilots calling out and them having to cancel like half or more of their flights and leaving people stranded everywhere. And guess what airline we were supposed to fly out on last Wednesday? So we may have been spared like a gigantic debacle with that. And that's another thing. When I left the jazz festivals and then really realized that I was not going to pursue that anymore, which was not immediately, but once I did, there was this sense of, I'm going to pull a John Madden here, if you're aware of that scenario, sportscaster. He doesn't fly anywhere. He has a bus, or it had. I don't think he's broadcasting now. I don't know. I should have checked. And he just won't fly. And when he would do his football games, whatever he would do, his own bus would take him there. I guess he spent a lot of time on the bus, and I'm sure he didn't have to drive, which is good. But I'm kind of envious of that. And I haven't flown since 2008 when we came back from Sun Valley, which is the last festival I did. So it would have been like 13 years to the festival date that I had flown again. And I'm kind of relieved, actually, because I didn't want to deal with that. So, yeah. Plane tickets are already bought, so we got to use the money next year. So I don't have an option to drive. Should have done it this year, then I wouldn't have had to drive either. Oh my goodness. There we go. As he slowly gets distracted and loses his focus. So, the music festival, the jazz festival scene in particular, it's a really cool scene. Particularly if you were a musician who likes to hang. And that is a thing, the hang. And it's not so much with me. And I don't want to say that gets me in trouble, but it doesn't do me any favors. Let's put it that way. When you're more of the, introvert, reclusive, monastic living kind of guy, and you go to the festivals and you're not like schmoozing at the bar with all the other musicians and doing the big networking thing and the yuck yuck story thing, and I say at the bar, we're talking about from breakfast, every meal, and then late at night. There's no hospitality station for musicians at a jazz festival where the bar isn't open, starting at breakfast. And it's, not my scene. It's funny, this is not related, but it kind of is. For different reasons, not philosophical, just different, reasons. I don't drink much, occasionally, but almost never on a gig. And because people don't see me walk around with something in my hand, especially like a restaurant gig that happens repeatedly or whatever, they just assume. I don't think about it. Well, I didn't think about it, but now I know the dynamic, so I do this on purpose now. So after a few months of, never having a drink while, other musicians are there, John Ewart with his mic stand with his cup holder. I made a Facebook post some years ago. I was like, now I understand the purpose of a microphone stand, to hold the beer, right? And of course he's, big, he's got his place in New Orleans, and that's his thing. So every 3 or 4 months, I'll order a beer or order something and walk around with it, and you can actually hear like, what Joe? Look at that! I thought he didn't drink. He's a teetotaler. Wait, what happened? I just keep people off guard. It's fun. So this whole hanging thing, it's not just a social thing. It's also like a networking thing. Now, for me, when I was at the festivals, I was actually more interested in finding people who were engaged by what I was doing. Talk to fans. Talk to people who why I'm there. But I'm not on the same page with some musicians in that regard. It seems. But anyway, one of the things that musicians do. And I'm completely divorced from this because much of what I've done is solo. And with some exception, particularly in Rehoboth, where I'm a sideman most all the time, I do stuff under my own name. At least some of it. And of course, anything you see here on, I was going to say Facebook, on YouTube or online is certainly under my own name. And I don't need other musicians to play with. And what musicians do is they rely on each other to call them for gigs, among whatever else that they have in the fire. And some musicians are, infamous, even like kind of notorious for like always, being on the phone, being the operator and putting this together and being called for that. There was one musician who had a band that he led, but also, of course, worked with lots of other people, and was only really interested in hiring band leaders to be in his band, with the expectation that the band leaders would call him for their gigs, and if they didn't, they wouldn't get called again. It's like, that's... Actually, I'm talking about it like it's like, oh, shame. I don't really mean that. It was just like an example of like, this is all this, and I'm just not that guy, So in that sense, I really don't fit in. But in another sense, even though I'm a reclusive solo guy, making music is still about the connection you have with others. And that connection absolutely can spread out into a social connection. And the people that I make music with regularly are among my closest friends. And that's how that works, really. So music is about, I'm trying to pull it back now from what I was saying, the connections with people, the connections with the audience. I like to focus on the audience, but with the musicians on stage and all of that. And you just like make the connection and see what happens, right? And I would be remiss, I would be leaving something important out if I didn't talk about wacky hijinks. Musicians playing gags on other musicians and, all sorts of stuff. And yeah, if I'd been like the serious kind of like on the road, life on the road guy, I would have. I mean, that's fun sometimes. I pulled a few pranks myself, but for the most part, I just like watch it happen and hope it's not directed at me at a given moment. But one of the funniest ones, which wasn't, they're not malicious. I don't mean that, but one of the absolute funniest ones was at one of the, I think it was Mammoth Lakes where it was with the Madiri band back when I was doing it, and Paul Madiri plays vibes, has some hymns that he plays, and often Madiris would play a Sunday morning a set of hymns, right? And one of the hymns that he plays solo, I think the band would join in after the first chorus, but he would play the first pass of the solo, is How Great Thou Art. You probably know the hymn. The chorus. Right? Well, Jimmy behind the drums. Jimmy can get away with mischief behind the drums, and I enlisted him in something once that required that the people in front of him didn't see what he was doing. And of course, they're right in front of him and they're facing out, so it was like me when I was telling you the story of when I switched the Madiri brothers in stage band rehearsal in high school in their sections, and the band director couldn't tune the band because the rhythm section was set up behind the band director, so I was to his back. I got away with like falling off my chair and having him not notice. But anyway, Jimmy discovered that the key to our rental car, the little automatic door lock thing that would lock the door, we were close enough where we were set up to where the car was in the parking lot that it would beep if he pressed it, like a beep, right? So he thought it was a nice strategic place to place the beep right in that phrase. Beep. And he did it like every pass all the way through. And Paul didn't notice. And it was like in the background, it was just like, you probably had to know what was happening to notice. And of course the whole band knew what was happening, or all dying, and Paul's just, paying attention to what he's doing. I don't know, just like the subtle undercurrent thing. And that's something that Joe and Paul would often say, and they're right about this, when the Madiri brothers, that when you're having fun on stage, it translates to the audience, and the audience has fun with you. And it could be something inside where the audience doesn't know what's going on, but they see you're having fun, and they're having fun with you because you're having fun. They don't have to even know what it's about, and that's entirely true. And that's a part of the appeal of the Madiri Brothers band. It is that sense of fun and related things. So I'll take a pass at the hymn, but I will not beat my. Do I even have it? See, if I did, I could try it. Anyway, no. I think, though, that if I had my key, my car would stop. Anyway, precarious festivities, for sure. So that's a story of this month and why I was a civilian in Rehoboth, which was fun, but I can't really afford it. But that's okay, because it's all how you look at it. Big picture, providential leading, all of that. It's fine, I'm good. Or if you want to use the old cliche saying, is the glass half full or is it half empty? It's always actually more than half full, but you know what I mean. Look on the bright side. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here, and thank you to those who support and provide encouragement. And the link to the support page of my website should be in the description. And check out the website, see what else is going on, and thank you for being in the orb here. I really appreciate it. See you next week inside the process.